Good morning, legends, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are looking at Bitcoin short-term and macro, as well as discussing the total altcoin market, as the altcoin market cap has been aggressively rallying upwards, now retesting its 2021 all-time high, the macro all-time high for the altcoin market. Are we going to see a parabolic altcoin rotation moving into the next couple of weeks? Will Bitcoin continue upwards, or are we going to see across the board corrections? These are the topics we're going to be discussing in the video today. Before we get into it, make sure to smash that like button, hit that comment button, and subscribe to the channel. We post daily videos for Bitcoin, focusing on the facts, the data, the technical, and the structural information. No hype, no BS, no emotion, just pure, raw TA. If that is the kind of content you are interested in, you can join us on Telegram. This is the first link down below. You'll get access to charts, updates, videos, educational posts, news events, and everything you need to stay in the loop of cryptocurrency with Bitcoin and the relevant economic news. And of course, if you are interested in joining the VIP channel, you can find out all information in the pinned comment of the free channel. Let's go ahead, guys, and jump into the video. So as we can see, some massive bullish price action here for the altcoin market as Bitcoin dominance continues to drop toward the downside, coming closer and closer to that 200 EMA on the weekly. The total altcoin market cap is now retesting that 2021 all-time high, sitting between 1.13 to 1.16 trillion, actually momentarily making a brand new all-time high just over the last 24 hours. We have since rejected from that level. We can see with the total cryptocurrency market cap breaking through the prior weekly range high at 3.95 trillion, now well above 4 trillion, we can see Bitcoin is as well pushing into that next level of resistance. We'll be discussing all of that in the video today. Let's start on the market data, 24-hour volume and 24-hour liquidations. Let's go ahead and jump into all of that. 24-hour volume is down 24% at 241 billion. Of course, as we approach and enter the weekend and coming now nearing the end of the weekend, volume always drops off. So this is not a shocking bit of data over here. 24-hour liquidations are down 42% at 275 million. Of course, longs and shorts being equally wrecked over here. Around 125 million in short liquidations, 148 million in long liquidations. Looking at the liquidation heat map, of course, Ethereum accounting for 65 million of those long liquidations. Moving over to the broader market, so DXY is still pushing downwards in anticipation of the interest rate release. That interest rate release is in just under 4 days from now. If we go ahead and quickly refresh this page, you'll be able to see the probabilities. The probabilities at the moment are heavily stacked in favor of a 25 basis point cut. I don't know if this is going to load. Actually, we can see it here, 93.4% in favor of that 25 basis point cut and 6.6% in favor of a 50 basis point cut. So the market has been rallying, pricing this in. If we do see a 50 basis point cut, it is very likely we're going to see an aggressive rally upwards. If we see the 25 basis point cut, it's hard to say exactly how the market will react on short term. Sometimes these do become silver news events. But when we're looking at the macro, overall interest rate reductions in the macro is inherently bullish for risk assets because it promotes an environment where the dollar generally drops, where, of course, we see more available household cash flow, we see decreasing debt to service ratios, which promotes, again, purchasing cheaper debt to acquire income-producing assets and then leveraging the income from those assets to then purchase more debt or acquire more debt to purchase more assets. So the overall mechanism, which is that which promotes asset prices rising, the main driver of that mechanism, one of the main drivers, is of course interest rates falling and debt becoming cheaper. So it is inherently going to be bullish, but whether or not the market actually perceives it to be a silver news event, and we see a sell-off or a media rally, is something we're going to have to be paying attention to how the market particularly moves into that release. So that is that, guys. Let's jump over to the S&P 500. The S&P 500 pushing aggressively upwards. We broke out of that RSI and the downtrend, signaling a positive momentum shift. absorbing the selling pressure. We had some semblance of a rising wedge formation, which we actually broke upwards, signifying some aggressive absorption here. Overall, bullish above the 50 EMA, bullish above this macro diagonal uptrend. If we lose the uptrend, we then expect corrections into 6,250 as a primary rejection target. Again, provided we hold above, we will likely see continuations higher, but we do need to be reminded of the fact that these diagonal uptrends do eventually break. So at some point, we will break this trend line, and when we do, we will expect a short-term correction for the S&P 500. Moving over to something like a weekly chart, we can see just how aggressive this chart is really looking over here. Again, having retested that prior break of structure around 4,800. Ever since then, we've been aggressively pushing upwards. So again, paying very close attention to the S&P 500, particularly moving into the interest rate release. That is it for the broader markets. Let's jump into Bitcoin, guys. Before we do, make sure to check out BitUnix, BitGet, BingX, the exchange links are down below. You'll get a lifetime trading fee discount of 15%, which can build up to 45% based on your trading volume. You'll support me making this content on a daily basis. You'll trade on exchanges I use and I trust, and you'll get access to a variety of monthly bonus campaigns where you can win thousands and thousands of dollars in bonus rewards, exclusive only to our community. At the moment, we have had a four-week giveaway. Every week we've given away money. We gave away 8,000 US dollars week 1 and 2, 4,000 week 3. Currently in the last week of this giveaway. So again, you'll automatically be entered into all of those promotions. All details can be found in the Telegram channel. You can check out that down below again. Let's jump back into the content. If you are looking for a new exchange or just want to support the channel, sign up to BitUnix with the link down below. You'll get a lifetime trading fee discount of 15%, which can build up to 45% based on your trading volume, as well as access to a bonus reward center, and of course, all of the exclusive campaigns we run on this exchange. You'll also get access to BitUnix being a non-KYC exchange, meaning you can sign up from anywhere in the globe without regulations. And most importantly, I only promote exchanges I trust and I use. As you can see, I trade on BitUnix very regularly, being the highest VIP level with over $500 million in trading volume for the last 30 days. And lastly, if you were interested in signing up to our other two exchanges, BingX or BitGet, you can also do that via the links down below. You as well will get the 15% trading fee discount and everything else that comes with it. Go ahead and sign up. Thank you for supporting. Let's jump back in. Okay team, let's get back into it. So taking a look at Bitcoin, the altcoin market, the macro charts, the upcoming weekly candle close even in now 24 hours. A lot to take a look at. Let's jump in to the weekly close first, and then jump over to Bitcoin, and then talk about the altcoin market. So the weekly candle closes in 24 hours, and we've talked about a few levels we need to maintain above on the weekly to signify strength has fully shifted in back in favor of the buyers. And we're also going to talk about a key level on the RSI, which could trigger continuation. So taking a look at the weekly chart over here, the level of which we really want to see a weekly close above, well, we have two levels. The first level was, of course, going to be this weekly range low at around 114,000. This level, we have 24 hours to remain above. We are currently sitting closer to 116,000, about $50 shy. So the probabilities that we remain above 114,000 moving to the next 24 hours is relatively high. I think it'd be pretty surprising to see a larger than $2,000 pullback over a 24-hour period, particularly over the weekend, with no external impacts. So I think there's a good chance we are able to maintain above this 114,000 level moving into the weekly candle close. But of course, we need to be aware that until the candle closes, nothing is confirmed. So we need to pay attention to it. Nevertheless, the weekly close above this level is the first step to signify the buyers are fully back in control. The next level we are watching for the weekly chart is this 119.5 to $120,000 region. We can see over here, we had this 5 to 6 week horizontal range high, which we were unable to close a weekly candle above. If we look at the total market cap, we had a similar weekly level of resistance, which we were unable to close above. But when we did break above here, we have seen a continuation upward. So we'd expect for Bitcoin a similar reaction. If we are able to get above this resistance, we'd expect weekly continuations upward for Bitcoin if that level were to break. But first and foremost, the level we are mostly watching for this weekly candle close is the 114,000 level, which we have currently broken above. If we take a look look at the RSI, we can also see the 62.09 in the RSI will have the attempted break upwards again in a couple weeks, maybe even a week from now, depending on how the price action develops. Historically, breaking upward from that point over the last few years have resulted in continuations upward. Again, this is just taking a look at the bull market. If we go back into the prior bear market, we can look at instances where we broke upwards from the 62.09, instance one over here. We can take a look at another instance over here. We can take a look at another instance back over here, and finally back in 2020. We had all of these instances except one result in continuations up for Bitcoin. So historically, again, breaking this point, whether it be a downward break or upward break, generally results in short to mid to sometimes long-term continuations in the price, as it represents momentum shifts. So something to pay attention to, of course, moving into maybe the next 2 weeks of price action. But that is it for the weekly candle. That's really all we are watching for the weekly candle. Let's jump over to the short term, the daily and the 4 hourly. So here is the daily chart. We can see on the daily chart some very important levels we've reclaimed over the last few days. We've managed to break above 114,000 and 112.5k, which were of course the range low of the horizontal consolidation and the 4-hourly range high of the resistance, horizontal resistance, which we broke through, facilitating a continuation upwards, of course, resulting or should I say, as a consequence to very bullish PPI data and relatively bullish PPI. I mean, PPI did come in a little higher for the base inflation month on month, but overall PPI dropping so much, CPI more or less holding on forecasts, and the interest rate expectations still are 90% in favor of a drop. The overall climate for the market here is still brushing off that slightly more bearish CPI release and more or less preparing for what is expected to be a bullish interest rate data release. So watching the price action here, we've talked about our next levels of resistance. At the moment, we are in an uptrend. We have been in an uptrend ever since we broke 114. That was really the trigger for the end of the downtrend. We're looking at the downtrend we were in from 122 to 123. We entered a downtrend upon the break of structure over here. We had a downtrend into the range low. We bounced, creating a lower high. We saw a correction under a range low. We bounced, creating another lower high. And then we saw this sideways consolidation with an upward trending support. We eventually broke through that prior lower high, signaling the end of this downtrend. And we have been in an uptrend ever since. So when we're looking at the trend of the price action, that same uptrending diagonal trend line, which we just showed you in the orange line, represented by this black line, is the trajectory of the price. The next level of liquidity, next level of resistance is sitting at 117.5 to this 118,000 region. This cluster of resistance over here is where we are watching for next targets for Bitcoin to push into and potential rejections to develop from. If we break through 118, we will expect continuations back into the range high, following in the total market cap's footsteps of a potential weekly breakout. So watching that very closely, guys. We're watching very closely this 118 to 117 to 117.5k level and this uptrend which has been developed. When we are looking at a higher time frame, going to something like a 3-day chart, we can see on the 3-day chart the key levels of support represented by the 50 EMA. We have also got something like the Gaussian channel. We can see both the 50 EMA and Gaussian channel upper band were defended. These are going to be bearish trigger points. So if at any point we do come back down and lose these respective levels, that would trigger a continuation into support. Sell side liquidity 100 to 98,000. Again, for that to happen, we've talked about this many times, we had to see 3 things occur. Number one, we have to see a loss of the local low at 107k. We need to see a daily breakdown of the 34.34 on the RSI, and we need to see the loss of the 3-day 50 EMA. Only upon all 3 of those things achieving will we see a continuation into 98 to 100,000. Until then, we have the chance of the buyers to get back in control, which they are doing a fantastic job of over the last few days. So jumping over to an even smaller time frame here, we can see some weakness has been developing in this uptrend. Of course, momentum does appear to be turning downwards. We can see some weakening positive momentum shift indicators printing, but the overall trend is very much still stabilizing upward, with the 50 EMA acting as a dynamic support and the price continuing to push upwards, creating higher lows upon this trend. So we are expecting pushes into this resistance, potentially into the interest rate reliefs, and then we will see how the price action responds after that fact. Looking at a 4-hourly chart, we could theoretically see pullbacks back into support at 113.5 to 112. This would be a high time frame level of support. Even if we come back down into this region, the trend would likely still be intact, depending on how long we go in time, to which we break down and retest. If we were to retest this point in 2 weeks from now, of course, this uptrend will have been broken. But if it were to happen within the next, say, 4 or 5 days, around about that interest rate release, it is likely we could retest its support while still maintaining above the uptrend. Nevertheless, this horizontal support is really the point at which the buyers will need to maintain above if they want any chance of pushing the price fully back up to the range high, because losing this level will likely confirm corrections back into sell-side liquidity. That is it for the short term for Bitcoin. Let's quickly wrap it up, guys, with the total altcoin and total cryptocurrency market cap. So jumping over to the total cryptocurrency market cap, the total cryptocurrency market cap is a very interesting chart recently. Now, although Bitcoin was in a downtrend for quite some time there, for around 2 to 3, maybe even 4 weeks, the total cryptocurrency market cap, although was in a 2-week downtrend, it was able to maintain above its critical levels of support. Number one, being that $3.65 trillion level represented by this horizontal gray level, which is the prior weekly range high, and the macro uptrend represented by the diagonal trend line, holding back from these lows back in April 2025. Provided these levels hold a support, which they have, the total cryptocurrency market is still in a uptrend. And if the total cryptocurrency market is still in an uptrend, this is a representation of whether or not crypto as a collective, whether it be altcoins and Bitcoin together, are bullish or bearish. So the total cryptocurrency market is in a bullish trend, and it has just broken through a key resistance level. This is very, very big, as it may facilitate continuations now into price discovery. Now, price discovery commences above 4.17 trillion. And of course, if we see that, we could see some parabolic rotations into altcoins, particularly with Bitcoin dominance seeming to aggressively drop. Now, when we're looking at Bitcoin dominance, the expectations are we come into the sell side liquidity, which is going to be just under the 200 moving average now, around 55 to 54%. So we are watching that as a potential target where then rotations back to Bitcoin could occur. We do expect Bitcoin dominance to slightly push upwards again. If Bitcoin were to break through this resistance at 118K, we would expect Bitcoin dominance to maybe push back upwards, and we would expect a bit of a bounce on Bitcoin dominance similar to what we have drawn out over here. As for the total altcoin market, the altcoin market is retesting a key point of resistance. In fact, this is completely the last level of resistance, because it is essentially the highest price we have ever seen the total altcoin market cap retest. So it is the last level of resistance. Breaking through here, we have no historical resistances above us. We get in price discovery, where the market will likely facilitate strong continuations and then develop new points of resistance. Now, there is one thing I am slightly concerned about, and that is the fact that if we're looking at the RSI over here, we have not seen a positive momentum shift. So generally, when we're looking at momentum, we want to see momentum leading price action. It signifies that there's strength. It signifies that there's demand at these levels. It will facilitate these breakouts. When we don't have positive momentum, it can sometimes result in failed attempts to break out or even deviations. So we do have to take this resistance seriously, meaning we could see pullbacks here for altcoins, which may facilitate a rotation in Bitcoin and Bitcoin pushing upwards. It really just depends, again, how that total cryptocurrency market cap responds here and how the market reacts to interest rates. So pay very close attention. If the altcoin market is able to break through this weekly range high resistance, well, I don't think we're going to see what we saw last time. We look at last time, we broke through the weekly range high resistance. I don't know if we're going to see this massive parabolic phase. It's too hard to predict when we're looking at historical price patterns. We've had numerous macro patterns which should have played out perfectly, which kind of did play out half perfectly, but didn't kind of fulfill their full expectations. Again, as you know, we were essentially one of the first people to turn bullish on the altcoin market cap all the way back when we broke this major downtrending diagonal trend line over here. But we're looking at the swings, although the total altcoin market cap has been continuing, whether or not we will see that translate to the altcoin market in a way that people expect, that's a whole different story, because again, this cycle, we have probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of altcoins for people to place their money. Last cycles, maybe a few thousand most. 2017 cycle had like 1 to 2,000 altcoins, and there was like 900, and it ended with like just over 2,000 altcoins. The last cycle ended with just over 10,000. Now it's probably 10,000 being made a day. So this isn't a representation of how the individual altcoin will perform. It is more going to be a representation of when we are going to see altcoins perform better or worse against Bitcoin when we're pairing that with confluence of Bitcoin dominance. So again, something to pay attention to, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you all have a fantastic day. I'll catch you guys in tomorrow's video. A big week ahead. We've got the interest rate news, a very anticipated one, because it may be the first time we've seen interest rate cuts for quite some time. We haven't seen interest rate cuts for a while now, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be exciting. Hopefully it does bring in some volatility and definitive price action. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. See you then. Bye.